Hi everyone, welcome back to day 2 and welcome to those of you who are joining us for the first time. Just a quick recap of last class or last session. We talked about the curses and blessings of generative AI. We also talked about some basic rules that would help to guide us using generative AI in our lives. Just to remind you, those rules were always invite AI to the table, something we'll be doing today. Be the human in the loop, something we'll also be doing today. Treat AI like a person, but tell it what kind of person it is. And we will definitely be demonstrating that today as well. And assume this is the worst AI you will ever use. All of these rules will apply to everything we're talking about today. So today we're moving into prompt engineering. This is going to be a more hands-on demonstration. But before I get to that, I wanted to really talk to you about a theory called cognitive load theory, which is a theory we're using to sort of guide us or look through the lens of this theory to understand the basic principles of prompt engineering and how it works. So if you recall from last lecture, we had most of generative AI or most of AI is based upon this presumption that we're trying to create a computer similar to the human brain. And so this is just another one of those pieces. Once we do that, we're going to walk through exercises you can follow or just observe. So cognitive load theory. It's just a psychological framework or theory that explains how people learn and store new information by examining the relationship between working memory and long-term memory. It was introduced by John Sweller in the late 1980s, and it's today widely used in instructional design to optimize learning, and also the main goal being to minimize cognitive overload. And that is going to be the main piece to keep in mind as I move through these next slides. So cognitive learning theory is meant to provide us with guidance on how to reduce the cognitive load. And so in this case, I'm talking specifically about cognitive load of humans, but it applies, or we're sort of artificially applying it to generative AI. There's 3 main types. There's the intrinsic load. This is the load, how complicated a topic or task is, just how complicated it is. So for example, calculus is more complicated than simple math addition. The extraneous load. This load is imposed by extra information that distracts from the critical information you may want to get across to focus on the main task. So this is just too much information, irrelevant information, confusing information. And then the germane load, this load of mental effort is the mental effort required to link current knowledge to additional information. So this is associated with meaningful learning and the formation of new knowledge. So there's some principles that we learn from this theory as to how to reduce the cognitive load. The first is the coherence principle, reducing the amount of information to only what's necessary. Keep things simple and focus on the clarity over style. The signaling principle, which is to highlight important information and draw attention to it. Easier said than done, I'm sure, for many educators out there. The redundancy principle, do not overload with unnecessary information. Be as simple as possible. Also easier said than done. Spatial contiguity, show things related to each other, close together, or at least show that they're somehow linked. And then the 5th rule being link related concepts together without leaving significant gaps. Okay, so how does this apply to prompt engineering? This is essentially what we're trying, the main philosophical principles behind the tactics I'll be teaching you today. So intrinsic load, when designing prompts, it's helpful to simplify the task as much as possible. For more complex tasks, it might be necessary to sort of break down the instructions into smaller parts to reduce the intrinsic load on the model. And there's a couple of prompt tactics I'll be going through that will help break down more complex tasks. The extraneous load. To minimize extraneous load, prompts should be structured in a clear, concise, and relevant manner. Avoid adding unnecessary information. The germane load. To optimize this, we're going to use prompts that include well-designed examples that clearly represent the task structure. So just by presenting relevant examples, the model can form a temporary schema that aids in solving similar tasks. So basically, well-constructed prompts are what we're going to attempt to work on today. So the outline for the rest of class, I just wanted to give you sort of a conceptual idea of where we're working from and how some of these tactics came to be and sort of the theory behind using them. I will also note that a lot of these tactics are in flux, and there's researchers who look just at the tactics to see which ones will give us the most accurate, relevant content on the other end of these large language models. So we'll be talking about some useful prompt types. Prompt engineering. Okay, so we already know sort of the philosophy behind how we're creating prompts to be simple, to be instructional, etc. Trying to reduce the cognitive load as we map it onto the large language models. So for prompt engineering, the very literal definition is you're using your own text to sort of get what you want out of these models. And one thing I wanted to remind you, and I'll remind you again in a moment, is that these models are stochastic. And so I think we talked last session about the selection portion of the text. And this is where we sort of lose any guarantee that the response will be what you're looking for. And different models, and even the same model, will provide you a different response or a slightly different response almost every time you prompt it, regardless of if the prompt is exactly the same. So I just want to keep that in mind, and I'll demonstrate it in a moment. My example here for a prompt, which is a really simple prompt, if you can see on the slide, is just what is the best food in State College? It doesn't even say what is, it just says best food in State College, and then it goes ahead and lists several restaurants that are in existence in State College. That's not the best prompt, but just to give you an idea, it will give you something. If you have like a limerick and it's like A is for apple, B is for banana, and that's all you put in, it will start to populate the rest of the letters for you, or attempt to. There's many models that are available. These are free. All of these options have free components. In this particular lecture, we will only be going over free models. You can make a decision on your own if you would like to dabble in the more advanced models. But I wanted to make sure this was accessible to everybody, certainly people following along, so that you don't have to be paying for any of these models at this point. But I noted ChatGPT, probably the one you know the most, Copilot, Claude, Gemini, and DeepSeek. So right now, what I'm going to do is just show you the interface for opening the free version of ChatGPT. So the link is on here. It's just chatgpt.com. I want to note that you get about 25 to 50 free prompts every 3 hours through this particular model. And if you exceed the limit, a little note will pop up and just say you have to wait or upgrade. And let me show you ChatGPT. So I have it open already. And it's going to start off with, what can I help you with? And then there will be a little message box here. There's some options. You'll see options down here that we're not going to get to today, but could be very helpful as you're beginning to experiment and learn how to use the technology. And I'm already logged in here. I logged in with my Gmail account for this demonstration. You can do that or create an account just for ChatGPT, let's say, or use any email you prefer. And I think you can also do it without logging in for a short time. Okay, let me get back to the presentation. Okay, so I have ChatGPT open for the demonstrations we're about to do, but I want to also open a free version of Claude because I'm going to be showing you that the same prompt is going to yield you different results. So this is claude.ai/new. You get about 50 free prompts every day. So a slightly different amount of free prompts before you have to upgrade. And again, here is what you will see when you log into Claude, or if you create a Claude account, and you can upgrade here very easily. This is a brand new analysis tool, and it gives you some suggestions about things you may want to try out, and actually a lot of your recent chats it will also save at the bottom. So we'll be coming back to Claude in a moment. And the last one I'm going to show you today, as I mentioned, there are many. So you have, a lot of options here. And you might want to play around with them to see which one is the best for your particular purposes. But I also wanted to show you DeepSeek. This is one of the newcomers to the scene, and it also challenged our assumptions. I think I talked a little bit about this last class. Challenged our assumptions about model size and the amount of CPUs it would take to train. So I wanted to highlight it today as well. So that's at chat.deepseek.com, and I believe it's about 50 free prompts every day. So they're all pretty similar in the free prompts that they offer. Okay, so I noted to you that the different models, and even within models, will have different responses, even with the same exact prompt. So I want to demonstrate that for you. And how I'm going to do that is I'm just going to copy this off my slide, go back to ChatGPT. So this is the first one that I'll demonstrate. And I'm just going to paste in this prompt. Okay, so on ChatGPT, you'll notice that there's a little text box that comes up here almost as something that is a file attached. In this particular case, I don't want that file attached. Usually it won't do anything, but sometimes it confuses the model a little bit, so I'm going to delete it. And so now all I have is the text. Tell me about helium. That's very broad. There's not a lot of tactic usage here. I'm just going to let you see what you will get. So almost immediately it starts to populate an answer for you. Right now it gives you sort of a short overview. Helium, it's the table abbreviation of HE, is a colorless, odorless, tasteless, non-toxic gas. Tells you its atomic number, gives some of the properties, tells you where helium comes from, some uses, and the fact that there's a helium shortage. So this is one way of getting the information presented to me. And I asked a very basic prompt, tell me about helium. I didn't give a lot of instruction at all. So now let's try the exact same prompt in Claude. Tell me about helium. And this is a much shorter bit of information here, but it does say helium is the second lightest and second most abundant element in the universe. Gives some key facts, tells you about the atomic number being 2, the symbol being HE. But it's really a completely different format and a completely different set of information, as you can compare from ChatGPT, even though we asked the exact same question. Okay, and now I'm also going to try this on DeepSeek and see what they give us. And so again, you're getting a lot of information about helium. It's in different formats, different types of information. This one talks about the discovery of helium, in addition to the other things that ChatGPT suggested. And it looks like a pretty solid bit of information about helium. But just to give you an idea, okay, so you might say, all right, so I'm going to use the exact same prompt in the same model, and I should get the same response, right? Let's try. So again, in ChatGPT, for whatever reason, when you copy and paste text, it will give this little file. I almost always just delete that file. So it is very similar to what we got before, but it is still, again, slightly different. Here we have balloons and airships. Here we just, oh no, we have balloons and airships there as well. Medical applications, deep sea diving, scientific research. Is that in this one? Yes. So this one is very, very similar, but there will be some slight differences. We'll try it again in Claude. And again, very similar. So maybe they're onto me and they've been making some changes. There are almost always slight differences in the even within the models themselves. And you will find them if you look carefully at each of these outputs. And again, that's because of a selection issue and the fact that the models do not usually give you exactly the same response every single time. Although I will say that they're improving significantly all the time. So, okay, so this is our first prompt that we're going to work on using a tactic. This is a tactic of asking the model to behave as a certain type of persona. So the benefits here is that it provides context for more relevant and on-topic responses, tailors responses to match the expertise, tone, or style of the assigned role, which could be super helpful. Improves engagement by aligning the response to the user expectations, which again, if you're preparing a presentation or trying to talk to an audience that you don't know well, this could be really helpful. The one I'm going to demonstrate for you is you are a career coach, provide advice for someone transitioning into a new field. So if you're following along, I'm back at ChatGPT. And I have all this helium information here, and I'm going to be pasting in yet another prompt. And because it's ChatGPT, I'm removing that text file. My prompt here is, you are a career coach, so I'm telling it, this is the persona that you are, you're a career coach, and I want you to provide advice to someone who's transitioning into a new field. That's what I'm looking for it to help me with, in the way I want it to respond. And so when it provides the information to me, it should be as if it was coming from the persona of a career coach. And it looks like it probably did this for us. So transitioning into a new field can be both exciting and challenging. Here's a step-by-step strategy to make the shift smoother and increase your chances of success. And it goes through a whole bunch of pieces, and it's still writing things that might be very helpful in this particular goal. So clarify your goals, define what you want, why you want to change fields, leverage your transferable skills, gain relevant knowledge and skills, network strategically, tailor your resume and cover letter, etc. So this is a really nice summary of things you might want to do if you're thinking about changing fields. Let's try this also in Claude. And it looks like it's very similar, but it's formatted differently and it's much shorter. And it just says, so for the career transition advice, it just says, transitioning to a new field can be both exciting and challenging. Here is some practical advice to help navigate this change. And we'll try DeepSeek here, see what they tell us. And it looks like they all have relatively similar content, but just structured in a different way and different levels of complexity. Yeah, and DeepSeek really is going to town for you right now. If you're interested in changing your career right now, they even have an example transition plan from month 1 to month 7 plus. Okay, so that is the tactic of asking the model to behave as a certain type of persona. And you can change this. It doesn't have to be a career coach. It could be a health expert. It could be, my other example here was a fictional character from Sherlock Holmes, Irene Adler. Sometimes you run into copyright issues with certain characters, and they will only provide you responses if it's something that has nothing to do with the plots of the books. But just an idea, you can have any type of persona and have answers given to you via that persona, which can be really helpful. Ask the model to behave as a certain audience. This is really helpful as well. So here we're producing responses that resonate with the intended audience's specific needs. Aligning the complexity, tone, and style of your response to the audience's level of understanding. So one thing I do in class is I have the students create, explain what helium is to a 5-year-old. Explain what helium is to a college student. And you will get very different types of results as a result of the audience you choose. So in this case, the example we're going to walk through together is give me a 5-step study routine for college students to prepare for final exams. And you'll see that this is, the audience here is for college students. So I'm just copying that, and I'm going to, you could also just type it in. You don't have to copy and paste. You can also just type. I'm going to ask ChatGPT. And this is one of the messages that will pop up. I didn't delete the message quickly enough, or the image quickly enough, so it says unable to upload that message that I just copied in there. But it's not a big deal. You can just say, okay, that's no problem. I already have the text in here. So it gives you a real study plan, even how many days before the exam you should be studying. So if you were a student and you're like, listen, I only have like 2 days to prepare for this exam, you could modify this prompt and tell the model that you only have 2 days. So create me a study plan for a 2-day period. That's another option as well. Relax and optimize exam day. Make sure you get some sleep and eat a light, nutritious meal. I'm going to modify this for Claude, and I'm going to say, I want you to create a 5-step study routine for an elementary school student. And now I'm in Claude, so I've switched models that I'm using just to give you an idea of what you're going to get that's a little bit different. So Claude is going to be a little shorter, but you'll also note that this is a very different type of plan than what we saw with the undergraduates. So create a friendly study space, make a simple schedule, use active learning techniques like creating flashcards, review and rest. So this could be very helpful for an elementary student, and it's in the type of language they would need to have to succeed. Okay. Okay, so that is essentially the tactic of asking the model to behave as a certain audience. And you can imagine there's a lot of use cases here that could be very useful to you in your careers and just in general for communication. The third technique I'll talk about is question refinement. And this is actually really cool. And I think for those of us, like if you have questions about something that you don't really know, let's imagine you're visiting Disney World for the first time. You've never been there, so you want to make sure you get the best out of your experience, but you don't really know what questions you should be asking because you've never had the experience before. That's an example that would be really good for question refinement. So what I'm doing is I'm going to ask the model a question, but I'm going to say in my prompt, when I ask a question, please suggest a better question I could ask. And so here, I'm going to ask a question, should I go to Penn State? So again, I'm going to copy this. Again, you can copy and paste this in or write it in. And here I have, when I ask a question, so I'm telling it what I want, I'm telling the model exactly how I want it to respond to me. Suggest to me a better question. And then I ask the question that I have in mind, which is, should I go to Penn State? Which obviously the answer is yes. But we'll go ahead and see how this works for us. So the better question that they suggest is, how does Penn State align with my academic career and personal goals compared to other universities? And then if you like that question, you can go ahead, and it also gives you some information as to why it's a better question. So it says, this question encourages a more thoughtful comparison, helps you evaluate factors like programs, opportunities, culture, and financial considerations. Would you like help breaking down these factors? And I'll type in here, yes, why not? And then it will provide a lot more in-depth information than I would have probably received if I just asked, should I go to Penn State? Or what should I do at Disney World? Any broad question that you are not really sure, like what questions you have that you should be asking. And then there's even another question that they suggest, and they will help you research specific aspects of Penn State if you have specific interests. So they go up through everything like academic fit, career opportunities, campus life and culture, financial considerations, location and logistics, and then they ask you for follow-up if you are interested. So this is ChatGPT. Let's try DeepSeek. Oh, and DeepSeek is very nice. It said that's a great starting question, but it could be more specific. And their suggestion for their better question is, what factors should I consider when deciding if Penn State is right for me? And how can I evaluate if it aligns with my academic career and personal goals? And then it sort of walks you through each of those pieces. And it also has follow-up questions to consider that you could also copy and paste into the model and get more in-depth information. But this is super helpful for like when you know enough to be dangerous, but you don't know exactly what's going on. This can be really helpful as far as a prompting technique. Or even if you're getting ready for questions for an interview, this could be super helpful. Chain of thought tactic. So in this case, I'm just asking the model to reason step by step. If you recall from the cognitive load theory, we're trying to make sure that the models have specific enough instructions that they can provide us with the relevant and useful output. In this case, we have maybe a complicated question with more than one part. And so what we want to do is have some step-by-step guidance. And so we guide the model even by suggesting to break down the problem. My example that I'm going to walk you through is explain step-by-step how photosynthesis works, because that's a much easier way to sort of think about a very complicated problem. And so I will demonstrate this for you. Again, I'm going to start in ChatGPT, and then I will use another one of these to show you. And again, it doesn't want to recognize that, which is fine. And actually, in this case, they gave me 2 responses, which is really interesting. Response 1 is a step-by-step process of photosynthesis. And it goes through what I assume, I'm not a photosynthesis expert, but goes through all of these pieces. And you could compare which of these 2 options you think is better. It gives me the main equation, and it summarizes the steps. And so this is really interesting. So what's happening right now is that ChatGPT is trying to get me to train its own model. So my decision to prefer one of these models is actually going to provide them feedback with which of these would be the appropriate way to, if someone were to ask this later, provide this response. So I am not an expert, but I'm going to say I like this one because it's shorter. So they've used that information and they will now use it in their training data. So I have my overall photosynthesis equation here. This is a pretty decent step-by-step, and maybe if I was in high school and I was really interested in the basics of photosynthesis, this might be a really helpful prompt for me. Certainly, you can imagine there's a lot of things that need step-by-step help. Like, I'm trying to replace drywall right now. It's like, I need a step-by-step how to replace drywall. Is really helpful. Okay, I'm going to go now to Gemini, which I did not introduce before, but I'm worried about running out of free tokens. So Gemini is also a free model available via Google. It has an app actually you can put on your phone. It has a lot of cool features like a live feature, but right now I'm just going to ask it to explain. Please give me a step-by-step and sure enough, similar to the other models we've looked at today, DeepSeek and also Claude, we're getting, and also ChatGPT, we're getting a step-by-step guide here as far as what photosynthesis is. And you can use, try different models. If you have a question and you're not satisfied with what you get, you can either tweak the prompts to be a little bit more specific to something that you were looking for, or you can try another model and see if it provides you with exactly what you're looking for. Okay. So now we talked about the chain of thought tactic. We're moving on to a zero-shot tactic. So this is giving the model no examples, but has a clear definition task in the prompt. So benefits being that it's efficient, doesn't require more detailed setup or examples. Honestly, many times I start any kind of brainstorm, any kind of outline development with just a zero-shot tactic. I just type in the example at the very beginning of this session when I said I just typed in restaurants in State College. That's an example. I didn't give it a lot of information, but it provided me a starting point of restaurants. So here, the example that I'm going to give it is write a product description for a new smartphone. That's pretty broad. It's not terribly specific, and it's unlikely to give me exactly what I want, but it can be a good starting point. So we'll start with Claude. And again, it doesn't matter if you're using the same model to follow along with me, that's totally fine. I'm just demonstrating across several of these models so that you get an idea of the differences between them. Some of them are better for some tasks than others. You might have one that you prefer, the way that it comes out, the way that it's formatted. So I'm just demonstrating over many different platforms. So in this case, I've asked it to write a product description for a new smartphone. I don't know if it's going to make up a new smartphone or if it's going to pick one that is in existence. In this case, it talks about the X-Tech Horizon Z1. This is a phone I don't actually know anything about, so I'm not even sure if it's a real phone. But it gives me display information, tells me there's unparalleled performance. And if I was writing a product description for something on a website, let's say, if I have, maybe I have a new product or I want to write a product description for a water bottle, I can describe what the water bottle has, some of the things that might be important about that particular water bottle, put it into a prompt like this, and sure enough, it will provide me a product description that I can use, which could be super helpful to many of you, I'm sure, in your daily lives. But it doesn't have to be a product description. It can be, as I noted, just tell me the restaurants that are available in State College. It doesn't have to be about a product. It can be about literally anything. It's a really great prompt tactic just to get started. Okay, I will try it also in DeepSeek and see how they interpret this. And so it's an entirely different phone, and actually a lot more information. Sleek and durable design, enhanced privacy, 5G connectivity, immersive audio, smart features. And these are great for product descriptions that you might want to put on your website as well, like the Nova X9. So you'd have to make this for your own product, but it isn't just a smartphone. It's a powerhouse of innovation designed to help keep up with your dynamic lifestyle. Whether you're a photography enthusiast, a mobile gamer, or a busy professional, the Nova X9 Pro delivers unmatched performance, style, and reliability, which that sounds like an amazing product to me. I would probably look at the stars and consider purchasing this phone. And writing these out, if you've ever had to do like a product description, it takes a long time, or can take a long time. And this will do this for you in 5 seconds. So it's really helpful. Again, you have to know the specs of your particular product and make sure that the model knows them as well. But you can prompt it to do that. Let's try this again in Gemini and just see if they come up with yet another smartphone. In Gemini, it looks like does not like it when I copy and paste things in. So I'm going to please write a product description. Again, I've given it no real direction other than it's a smartphone, and it looks like, again, an entirely different phone. Immerse yourself in entertainment, capture stunning moments, power that lasts, etc., etc. Actually, I think I like this one the least of all of the ones that we try. But it's up to you which model you use and how you tweak the prompts. And in the follow-up session, we will be working on starting with a prompt, and then you'll be following along and tweaking some prompts. So you'll get a really good idea of how you can do that in a meaningful way. Today, I'm just talking to you about some of these prompt tactics so that you get a kind of an overview idea of how they work. Okay, so what have we gone over so far? So far, well, we've noted that there's different responses across and within models, certainly across at this point. We're asking a model, we've asked models to behave as a certain type of persona, which is really important. It can be very helpful. We've asked it to behave as a certain type of audience, which again can be really helpful. And the examples I gave here were 2 different examples. One was to provide a 5-step study guide for a college student, and one was to provide a 5-step study guide for an elementary school student. And we saw that the way that the model provided the responses, it was at the level appropriate for the audience that we asked it to provide a response for. So that can be super powerful and helpful especially if you have to give a presentation, or if you need to be able to write an email to an audience you're just not familiar with. It can be really helpful in guiding your responses in that vein. Question refinement. So again, you know a little, but you don't know a lot. So you start with a question you think is interesting, but ask it to come up with a better question than the one that you pose. And as you saw, you can continue to dig deeper and deeper and deeper until you get information that is exactly what you're looking for, or super helpful to whatever task you're interested in. Chain of thought, we're just explaining step by step. Again, this is trying to just break down for the LLM or for the model, and make it also sort of reason through and break down a more complex concept. So it's really helpful. I mean, you can use it for simple concepts too, but it's really helpful for things that might seem a little bit daunting. I could imagine someone like maybe a biology teacher who's in teaching in middle school. Maybe they have some really complex, like maybe they're trying to teach experimental design to middle school students. They could really get some help with step-by-step guidance, asking to break down the elements of experimental design, and then they could add like a piece as well for middle school students. And then you get sort of two tactics melded into one that could be tremendously beneficial. The zero-shot tactic, the type of tactic I always use to start, just, write a project description for a new smartphone, tell me what restaurants are available, tell me what nail salons are available in State College, what beers are there in State College. There's a lot of times that just getting your ideas started can be really helpful. Or I'm planning a birthday party and I want some ideas. The few shot tactic is the next one that I'm going to discuss with you. And this one is just slightly different. So this can be really helpful, and I'll explain why in a minute. So we're providing the model with several examples. So this is, again, like derived almost directly from cognitive load theory. We're providing some examples to kind of link these concepts together so that we get really coherent output from the model. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an example of how to do this. But what it does is it improves models' accuracy and relevance by showing examples of desired output. So you can imagine you might have summaries that you provide for your groups after every meeting. Let's say you have a meeting, it's in person, someone summarizes all of the notes, or maybe you have Zoom summarizing for you and providing a transcript. What you could do is say like, hey, these are the summaries we've typically had in the past, and I want to create another one based on this new information. And it can do that. So it helps with creativity and content generation as the model learns from prior samples. It reduces ambiguity in the model's task interpretation. And I'm just going to show you a really basic example of how to do this just by offering a couple of introductory paragraphs for a blog post and then asking it to write a third blog post. A third introductory post is what I'm asking it to do. Okay. Shall we try ChatGPT again? Let's see. Okay, so what I've done here is I've put in my prompt. I don't care about the text data file. Here are the two examples of introductory paragraphs for a blog post. Write a third one. Of course, I don't have them here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little plus sign. I'm actually not going to use ChatGPT because I ran out of free things for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try it in Claude. And I'm going to upload my 2 paragraphs. And I'm going to say, so this exact process is what you do in ChatGPT. And if you had the unlimited version, which I'm used to using, you can just go ahead and keep prompting. We have run out of the ability during this session to upload any more documents to ChatGPT. So we can't use that for the rest of this session. But we have many other models to choose from. Okay, so it has a document. It was just a Word document that I uploaded. I just created 2 introductory blog posts, pasted them into a Word document, uploaded that Word document into Claude, and you can do it into ChatGPT as well. I asked it to provide me a 3rd introductory paragraph option based on the 2 that I had already uploaded. And sure enough, what I asked it to do was write a blog post about generative AI. And so this is the 3rd paragraph it comes up with. In this blog, we'll navigate the fascinating landscape of generative AI, examining the neural architecture behind these revolutionary systems and cross-disciplinary disruptions they're catalyzing, and the philosophical dilemmas they present in our increasingly AI-augmented world. Whether you're a technology professional, a creative explorer, or simply curious about how machine learning is reshaping creative expression, join us as we illuminate the capabilities of Gen AI and chart its profound influence on innovation, artistic endeavors, and the future of human-machine collaboration. And I think that's actually an excellent opening paragraph for a blog post about generative AI. So I have several options now. I can edit them in a Word document, make them exactly what I want. And I've done that in, just seconds of time. And in fact, fun fact, the 2 paragraphs that I uploaded, I generated in ChatGPT and then just pasted them into a Word document. So I did like almost 0 work here, original work here. And obviously, if you're in an industry that values like your original content and your quality control, especially, you're going to want to not take these responses on their face. So make sure you read through, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's on topic to what you're actually trying to discuss, and make it your own. It saves a tremendous amount of time because it gets you started, but do make sure that you are the human in the loop in editing and providing your own flair. Okay. I'll try this just one more time in DeepSeek. I'm just curious to see what's going to happen. Oh, but I forgot to give them my file. So what I did is I uploaded through this little paperclip here the same paragraphs that I uploaded into, was it Claude I uploaded into? Yes. And I said, please write a 3rd introductory blog post based on the uploaded examples. So let's see what happens now. And so, interestingly, my file is labeled, you couldn't see it because I didn't show you the actual file, but the Word document that I uploaded is delineated by A paragraph, B paragraph. And here, DeepSeek continued that pattern with C. and wrote a new paragraph for me as well. So in this blog, we dive into the fascinating universe of generative AI, exploring the cutting edge algorithms that fuel these tools, the revolutionary ways in which they're transforming industries, and the ethical dilemmas they bring to the forefront. Whether you're a tech innovator, a creative visionary, or someone captivated by the possibilities of AI-driven content, join us as we uncover the potential of AI to redefine creativity, reshape workflows, and inspire the future of human-machine collaboration. Together, we will navigate the promises and challenges of this groundbreaking technology. So I like a lot of that paragraph. It's a little bit over-promising, I think, for one blog post, but I might go in and edit it and make it my own, and it could be really helpful. Okay. And again, these are very basic prompt tactics. We'll be talking a little bit more about like sort of drilling down next session as well. But we still have a couple left, so let's get through these. So instructional tactic. The benefit here is it generates outputs with specific formats. So you might have a report that needs to be generated in a specific format. Maybe it needs bullet points. Maybe it needs to be in lists or steps or numbered. Ensures clarity and alignment with how the user wants the information presented. So this is really a structural tactic, how you want the output to be structured. So in this case, my example is a pretty simple example. I just want to list the pros and cons of remote work in bullet points. So I'm going to get a list in bullet points, hopefully. Let's see if I'm still unable to use ChatGPT. Nope, I still have enough of this. I just can't upload any documents. Okay, so I'm getting pros. Again, I'm in ChatGPT right now. I've asked it for a list of pros and cons of remote work with bullet points. So it's exactly what it gives me. It gives me the pros and cons. Further, it asks me, would you like recommendations on how to maximize the benefits and minimize the downsides of remote work, which could be really helpful if that's something that you're interested in. So you can continue to iterate here. Let me ask the same question to DeepSeek. And I don't necessarily think that at this point, I can make a judgment of which is better than the other. I just think that they're different. So you will probably naturally gravitate towards one or two that are just more intuitive to you. And I think that that's the most important thing to take away. So this one has kind of actually it looks like a longer list of cons and also pros. So I would look through both and just see what resonates with me and then use that to make my decision about whether I want to work remotely. And of course, you can do that for so many different use cases. Just that particular prompt is all about structure. So it wasn't about remote work at all. It was the purpose of that particular example was just to get you to understand that you can ask these models to provide you content in a particular format. So if you want bullet points, if you want it numbered, you should be able to prompt it to do that for you. And the last tactic we'll talk about today is a scenario-based tactic. It encourages contextually rich scenario-driven responses, generates more creative and practical content. And I'm just going to quickly show you this in one example. We'll stick with Claude for now. So I asked it, you are a teacher preparing for the first day of school. Write an email to parents, including introducing yourself and outlining your experiences. So you can imagine, this happened to my sister-in-law recently. She just started a new teaching job. She wanted to make sure that all of the parents kind of got to know her through this email. And I directed her to a prompt similar to this, where she could get the basics of what she might want to include in that email. And again, this is it even gives you warmly, like you can enter your own information here. supplies that might be needed, things that if you were a new teacher, you may not even think about putting in a first time email. So it can be super important and super helpful. And you can provide any scenario. You can imagine there's many scenarios that could be useful to you. Okay, so one major caution is that these models also can give incorrect information. They want to please you. We talked about this last time. There's a social desirability bias, and they can hallucinate and or make up information. So you're having the human in the loop, always doing the quality control is super important. I really hope you enjoyed today's very broad overview of some of these prompt techniques. I know that the slides will be made available to everybody if you want to follow along and try this again at home. We do have an email that you can reach us to ask questions and make suggestions. It's AI short course at psu.edu, and stay tuned for next week. Can't wait to see you.